I am always surprised when I come into the United States, and I come very often, that everybody is so pessimistic about cybersecurity. We're only talking day and night about the problems of cybersecurity, but we don't really have enough people that they are really moving into the solutions of cybersecurity. I mean, let's be realistic. We are entering into an era where we're going to be connecting 50 billion devices to the internet. This is happening in the next 5 years. We are also in an era where 6 billion people that they are not yet to the internet are going to join the internet, which are going to bring another experience that we don't have. They're going to help us to architect a better world. The current world has been architected by 300 million people. Imagine the mistake we made. So the internet is an amazing infrastructure that will enable the world to be a much better place. But we have to be conscious of something. When I founded WISeKey, before I was the Chief Security Officer of the United Nations, and I worked with a team in Geneva that developed the World Wide Web. The web sits on the top of the internet. The internet was the ARPANET, which was a military backbone, which then became the internet. And then the software that runs on the internet is the web, which was developed in Geneva by CERN, the Nuclear Research Laboratory. And at that time, the people that developed the web, they developed as a very easy way to interconnect computers. The vision was not at all to conduct security or connecting objects or do transactions or do payment of cards. They just wanted to move data in a very easy way without the need to bother into centralized servers. So the web was a hyperlinked environment, and nobody at that time thought about the person inside the web. So we started to look into how can we bring the person to the gravity center of the internet. The internet is a connectivity of machines and servers. The person is not there. So the first thing we did is use our bunkers. This is a video from Bloomberg after visiting our Swiss bunkers. We put data inside military bunkers in the Swiss Alps, where people ski in the top of the mountain. Behind that mountain, we have our bunkers. And in those bunkers, we put data which is collected by people in a way that nobody can hack, using a technology called asymmetric keys. So, for instance, when you hack a GSM mobile phone or you hack a password, you are, in the best cases, using what the previous speaker said, a person that puts password on a password, right? But even if the person gets a bit more sophisticated, will use a symmetric key, which is what you have on GSM phones. And they feel very secure because the telco provider says your data is secure. But actually it's not. Symmetric keys are very easy to hack. And imagine password. Password in our days will take a few seconds for anybody to hack everybody of you guys' passwords within few seconds. So you need to move to something more complex and more sophisticated, which you call asymmetric keys. So asymmetric keys, you have a root key, a cryptographic root key, which is an algorithm, that you have to store in an ultra-secure location. So here is a bunker inside the Swiss mountains. The other key, which is the public key, you give it to people around the world. And with both keys, you encrypt and decrypt data. So that works in the same way that if you go into a bank and you have data or you have documents stored in a safe deposit, the bank will own one key, and they will give you another key, and you have to go physically to the bank, show your key, open, and then get the content from your box. The same works on cryptography. The dual key, or what we call dual factor authentication, is something is there. How many of you guys are using digital certificate to digitally sign your email? Can you raise your hands? 1, 2. And you are concerned to be hacked? So this is like washing your teeth every morning. I mean, this is basic cybersecurity hygiene, is to move to dual factor authentication. Many companies in the United States are offering already dual factor authentication. With dual factor authentication, you're going to reduce the need of having to worry about passwords because you have wallets that allows you to store all your password, credentials, and everything into an app, and then decrypt with the key that is always in your control. Governments will never be able to access your key. They will require a massive attack of everybody at the same time. Imagine me, government, trying to hack you, each of you guys' mobile phones, bidirectional to extract your key. So dual authentication key is something that's there. Why it's not there? Why people are not using it? You know why? Because the $1 trillion industry that has been created around data mining your data requires your data as a raw data. They don't want your data being encrypted. What will be the situation with Google if they could not data mine your data because you are encrypting your data with a dual authenticating key? So what is happening is the following. While we have a $1 trillion economy calling the shots, which is data mine your data, you know the bad news, guys, you are the product of those companies. Those companies don't have any product. They are selling you, and they are monetizing you to endless, because in their business model, they have to show how much per user monetization can achieve. And Facebook has $145 per one user, Google has a bit more, and Snapchat has a least. The entire industry is running around monetization of the product, which has become the person. So the person now is not anymore at the center of the internet. This was the evolution, you know, the 90s, you remember the terminal connected to mainframes where terminals were not intelligent, every power was on the mainframe. Then we move into the portals, the Amazons, the Google, they started to develop their own portals where the portal was very important and the companies with portal were making a lot of money. Then we start to move into social networks, which was basically a repetition of the model. The social network, the only thing it does is putting you in the product of that company. Facebook has 1.3 billion products, which are the people that they trust their data to Facebook without them to know that they have become in a product. If you go now to the next generation, and this is the good news, is what we call an identity platform. So in an identity platform model, I, as a person, decide what data I want to decrypt on my dual-factor authentication to let the organization to data mine that data. I will never tell them who I am, what you call in cryptography PII, personal identifiable information is mine. This is who I am, where I live, where my kids are, the pictures of my family, things that I will only share eventually with my brother or with my very close family. But I don't want to share that with anybody else. But I don't mind data mine companies to mine what we call in cryptography an attribute. An attribute, what is an attribute? I like sports, I like Chicago, I like to come in to do selling. That is something I don't mind then to data mine, but without tracing back to me. The back to me is what you call a digital identity. In the United States, contrary to Europe, you don't have the notion of a digital identity. We have in Europe, all of us, we have a digital identity card, which is a piece of plastic that we have to show to get anything. So a digital identity is required on the internet as a way for you as a user of the internet to have your birth certificate. When we born anywhere in the United States, the first thing they're going to give you is a birth certificate, right? It's a piece of paper that you will use later to negotiate your credit cards, your house. All the documents are based on that birth certificate. The internet requires a birth certificate. The Facebook identity, Facebook Connect, Google ID, they are not identities, they are attributes to your identity. The identity is who you are. Facebook has no authority to tell you who you are. You have the right eventually to give them access to your PII if for any reason you decide to do that. But this is an option. So the world is moving towards identity platforms. Now, the concept of identity platform is very powerful, and those companies like WISeKey and others are growing very fast due to that, because we put this person at the center of the gravity. And this is important. Remember that sentence, the person becomes the center of the gravity of the net. So what will happen from there is that you are creating now an environment on where my PII, who I am, connects also the objects that I own. So every object, and there are 50 billion objects being connected, they also require a digital identity. We talk about robotics and how those drones are going to be invading our life. But if I can control them because I control their digital identity of that object, and they are in my ecosystem, I have no fear because I can develop attributes that defines the activity of that product. You know, if we don't go into a digital identity, we're going to end up on those films that you see somebody knows everything. This is actually going to happen. In 5 years' time, we have the moment of singularity on where one computer reaches the intellectual capability of a human being. So that means that the computers will be able to take decisions. If we are not able to dissociate the digital identity of the person from what that person knows, we will not be able to make the difference what is a computer and a person on the internet. And that is essential. So we are now moving into putting those identities into objects. And the idea of the object is that eventually my PII, who I am, can be stored into devices. So let's say, and we did that in Switzerland, we started to put a digital identity on watches. You know, we know about the iPhones and the Apple Watch. So what we did was, what about if I put who I am into an object, and this object has the authority to access my car, I can open my house, I can activate my alarm system, and I can encrypt data and store it in an encrypted cloud, which only me with that object have the possibility to decrypt. So that works in a similar way that if you want to create a vault inside a cloud. When you put data on a cloud, and the clouds now, they are what you call centralized clouds, like the case of Google. Google is a massive computer. Google is only one computer, connecting millions of computers, but they act as a one computer. So whatever you put there, this computer has endless right to analyze that data. Other companies, and they are moving away from the centralized model of cloud, they are building what you call decentralized clouds. Microsoft is one of them, where the data is not located in the same place. And you can, as a user, say, I want to give my data to you, cloud, but I want to encrypt the data, and I can only decrypt the data if you have my permission to do so. So people cannot data mine the data. So remember this very important point, that the evolution of the internet will become a major infrastructure. The internet now, for the first time, is moving towards, we call it a utility. So it's like electricity, it's like roads, needs regulation, but the regulation will come from the objects and they will be connected to the internet. So those are projects that we just launched. Actually, Boston is going to be the hosting of the America's Cup. WISeKey provides the security of the Oracle Team USA. This is a very interesting project where we are connecting 1 million sensors in the boat with 5 million people in the city, which connects to something like 25 million devices on that city. So everything is on one network, and that network interconnects everybody with one identity. The fact that you control your identity, the fact that that identity is uncompromisable, because the day that you retire, let's say one day you say, okay, I am off, I don't want to work anymore, I don't want all my data on the internet, I want to shut down my PII. By decrypting your PII, you decrypt the data that has been generated with that PII. The data might exist in one way or another, but there will be no legal way to relate you, person, to the data that you have generated. So the internet, in order to be a safe environment, the one we want to build now, will cost $170 trillion. That's the money we'll need to go into the internet to create a 100% safe environment. There's no money in the world to do that. So the only way this will work is by creating verticals, industrial verticals, on where car manufacturers will put their PII on people's and car, and will make sure that that environment is protected, where medical companies will work into standardization to make sure that the pharmaceutical products are digitally signed so you avoid counterfeiting, where you will be developing safety in airline industries and car by digitally tagging spare parts, and each spare part will be talking to the internet, giving real-time sensor and real-time monitoring capability. That is the real internet. The one we have now, to be honest, is just an advertisement tool that allows people to make a lot of money and get data which are not authorized to get, because we, users, did not yet realize that we are giving away something which is essential, which is our private information or PII. Get control of your PII. Just download it. WISeKey is one, but there are many companies. You just download apps that allows you to create a dual-factor authentication. Do that right now, and you will have a hope to be in a position on where the one that calls the shots on the internet is the user and not the platform. Thank you very much.